Welcome back, and thank you for continuing on this historic journey of concern, of safety, and of connection with each other. Each day brings us new challenges, new insights, and new realizations, not all of which are helpful or calming. In fact, the world as we thought we knew it seems to have altered dramatically. If we do nothing else but pause to take a breath, a big breath, then our time together will be worthwhile and valuable. As you have heard me say before, I think the anxieties of this time have tied us all up in such knots of concern, worry, and frightful anticipation that we are perpetually holding our insides in tension. And I am convinced we regularly forget to breathe. So here we are at this historic time in the life of our country. We join together to offer each other support, comfort, compassion, and encouragement, and the opportunity to breathe. Like many of you, I suspect, on this day, this Tuesday, January 19th, I find myself suspended between hope and dread. Wherever you might sit on the political spectrum, the events of just 2 weeks ago have shaken us all to our very core. Our core of belief and of faith in what we thought we could count upon as the transcendent ideals and values of this country. My sense of security that I subscribe to a shared vision, a vision of a democratic country that is flawed, imperfect, incomplete, but headed in the right direction, was shattered with the mob's shattering of doors, windows, and sacred spaces. I did not recognize those people, their slogans, or their behavior. Those things don't happen in the country I believe in the country I grew up in the country that I love. And yet, our observance yesterday of Martin Luther King Jr's extraordinary contribution to this country, and in fact to our world, reminds us to our shame that the freedom, advantages, and opportunities that we haven't enjoyed, the life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness that is foundational to this country, have never belonged to the Black community or to other minority groups. They have felt for far too long the horror we just experienced for the very first time. But we want to believe. We have to believe. As Jews, as Americans, as human beings, we cannot give in to a dystopic vision. Why would we get up in the morning? What would we work for, strive for, live for? Martin Luther King himself acknowledged the wrongs that had been done, the inhumanity, the cruelty, the persecution, the savagery. And yet, he affirmed a vision of a better future, a future animated by a dream in which the sons of former slaves and the sons of former slave owners will be able to sit together at the table of brotherhood. Despite all of the evidence to the contrary, King uplifted that vision. He believed, despite over 350 years of slavery and mistreatment in this country, he affirmed the ultimate fulfillment of the ideals of this country for all of its inhabitants. I am not sure that I can fully appreciate even now the towering faith, strength, and courage it took to proclaim that dream and that vision. It makes me wonder if my own sense of horror, of spiritual sickness in the pit of my stomach, of profound sorrow and despondency is one more symptom of white privilege, that imperceptible attitude that allows us to remain blind to the suffering and the reality of others, some of whom may live next door. We need such visionaries, such dreamers, and such leaders as Martin Luther King was. In the midst of the dread the mob evoked, and that is inevitable, as we watch the security measures being set in place for tomorrow's inauguration, in the midst of our new understanding of the truth that if any one of us is oppressed, none of us is truly free, in the midst of the realization of the work we all have to do to correct, to repair, to restore so much that has been damaged or lost, the inauguration of a new president is a time of hopefulness. It is a time of national renewal and commitment. It is the closest we come to a sacred secular observance. We are feeling so disillusioned, so oppressed by realities we did not see or understand before. We feel so burdened and beleaguered, so removed from any sense of idealism and possibly even patriotism. But this is when our loyalty is most important, when despite every misgiving, we must try again. We must rejoin in common cause and in common purpose. And we must do so over and over and over again. Perhaps that is why we are taught the whole door by door in every generation. Each one of us must see ourselves as if we personally went forth out of Egypt. If we do not personally feel that we were slaves, how will we ever safeguard the freedom that we now enjoy? How will we avoid taking freedom for granted if we did not know what life was like without it? And this may be the most difficult part of the picture, the realization that our vision is not shared. Our understanding of the ideals and goals of this country are not universally treasured, and that we must be vigilant against every effort to undermine, marginalize, limit, or destroy the inalienable rights we learned and absorbed in grade school. It is a complex picture and a complicated realization with which we have been living for a while now, but we stubbornly hoped, I think, to be proven wrong in some fundamental way. I don't mean to go off into a place that will require serious examination, discussion, and action, but to articulate some of what we all might be thinking or feeling in an effort to release us from the paralyzing grip of fear, anxiety, and a sense of helplessness. So let us be aware that there is work to do, and there are serious issues to address, while at the same time, let us not lose sight of the blessings we do enjoy and the renewed hope that this time should evoke in us. By way of framing this time to breathe and to reflect, I would share these words from Barack Obama, President Barack Obama. Hope is not blind optimism. It's not ignoring the enormity of the task ahead or the roadblocks that stand in our path. It's not sitting on the sidelines or shirking from a fight. Hope is that thing inside us that insists, despite all evidence to the contrary, that something better awaits us if we have the courage to reach for it and to work for it and to fight for it. Hope is the belief that destiny will not be written for us, but by us, by the men and women who are not content to settle for the world as it is, who have the courage to remake the world as it should be. With these words reverberating in our minds and hearts, let us sit comfortably, but with attentiveness. Let us put our feet solidly on the ground and let us feel that ground beneath our feet. Let us place our hands in our laps. Let us close our eyes if we choose to do so. I kind of do so automatically, or just allow our eyes to rest without specific focus. And let us take that first big breath, and let me assure you that that kind of physical action induces yawning. It just happens. It happens to me every time. And it just that release, that intake, is almost like the singing impulse. When one sings, that can also induce yawning because of the physiology of our bodies. And many people fall asleep while meditating, and I have done it many, many times. So let us take that first big, deep breath and feel it. Feel it. Let us just focus on the feeling in our bodies. We don't even think about our bodies so much of the time, except when they hurt in some way. But if they're just working normally, miraculously, we count on it, which we should do. But let's right now feel the inhalation, the filling up, the letting go, and the breathing out. Just being aware puts us right here in this moment, right here and now, without any other thought except the breath coming into our bodies, filling us up. And then after pausing, in gratitude perhaps, just in observation and recognition and acknowledgement, we exhale. And we do it again. Just thinking about the sensations, taking a breath brings to our bodies. Let us breathe in the hope of realism, of activism, of faith in the face of uncertainty. Obama's description of hope reminds me of our definition of faith, that it is not to be certain, but it is the way we deal with uncertainty. Let us breathe out our anxiety, our timidity, our inability to envision our world as it must be. Let us breathe in that clarion call. Yes, we can. Let us breathe that in deeply, even for this moment, even for these few moments. And let us breathe out the evil designs of others who count on our disbelief, who count on our naivete, our complacency, and even our decency to get away with their destructive plans. We breathe in hope, the audacity of hope, the elixir of hope, the sustenance of hope. And we breathe out despair. We breathe out, I can't. We breathe out the negatives that hold us back, that tie us up, that inhibit our best selves. Let us breathe. And let us, in the spirit of Martin Luther King, remember his words as well. Martin Luther King Jr. Human progress is neither automatic nor inevitable. Even a superficial look at history reveals that no social advance rolls in on the wheels of inevitability. Every step towards the goal of justice requires sacrifice, suffering, and struggle. The tireless exertions and passionate concern of dedicated individuals. Without persistent effort, time itself becomes an ally of the insurgent and primitive forces of irrational emotionalism and social destruction. This is no time for apathy or complacency. This is a time for vigorous and positive action. It is remarkable to me how current his words of over 50 years ago remain this very moment, this very day. Let us breathe in another sober, realistic assessment of what it takes to move forward, of what it takes to sustain any worthy endeavor. And let us breathe out our innocence and naivete, our belief in anything automatic just because it is right or just or good. It is hard to breathe that out, but we must. Let us breathe in our intention to take those steps towards the goal of justice. And let us breathe out any suggestion that the sacrifice, suffering, and struggle might be too high a price to pay. We remind ourselves that we are commanded, tzedek, tzedek tirdof, justice, justice, really justice, you must pursue. You are commanded to pursue. And we are reminded as well that we have known that sacrifice, that suffering, and that struggle repeatedly, incredulously, but repeatedly, so many times. Let us breathe in justice. And let us breathe out our sense of not wanting to do it again. Our wanting to have it done already. Let us breathe in our renewed intention and breathe out the rationalizations, the excuses, the not wanting tos, understandable as they are. And as we are breathing in, let us hold ourselves with compassion for all of the mixed feelings that we carry. Let us breathe in that compassion, that kindness to ourselves, even as we breathe out the negatives, the things we know will return and continue to plague us. We breathe in our vigorous and positive action And breathe out any apathy or complacency. Perhaps it is because of all that is happening in our world at this time that I saw Martin Luther King Jr. anew as a true prophet, a visionary, a leader, and teacher. Flawed human being, no question. But that did not negate or diminish the power of his vision and the profound inspiration of his words. He was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize in 1964, I believe. And at that time, he said, in part, civilization and violence are antithetical concepts. I have an abiding faith in America and an audacious faith in the future of humanity. I refuse to accept despair as the final response to the ambiguities of history. I refuse to accept the view that humanity is so tragically bound to the starless midnight of racism and war that the bright daybreak of peace and brotherhood can never become a reality. I believe that unarmed truth and unconditional love will have the final word in reality. This is why right, temporarily defeated, is stronger than evil triumphant. I believe that wounded justice, lying prostrate on the blood-flowing streets of our nations, can be lifted from this dust of shame to reign supreme among the children of humanity. I still believe that we shall overcome. Let us sit with those words for another moment or two. Let us breathe them in. That belief in the face of so much that was contrary, that negated it, that undermined it, that could have, should have destroyed it. And let us breathe out the same defeatism that he faced, the same fears and doubts that he faced. How extraordinary to be able to proclaim that vision because it was right, even while understanding, as he said, the obstacles and roadblocks to its ever being realized. That's hope. That is faith. That is vision. Let us breathe it in and breathe out those obstacles and roadblocks, even if just for this moment. In anticipation of tomorrow and all that we hope it might bring, let us sit with the messages of our country's tradition, its history, its writings, its values, its aspirations. We breathe them in, even while we breathe out. Anything that might interrupt what we know to be true, what we hope to be true, and what we will work to make true. By way of conclusion, of blessing and of hope for this week, this historic week, I would share with you these words, again, of Martin Luther King Jr. from his sermon, "I've Been to the Mountaintop," delivered in Memphis, Tennessee in 1968. Like anybody, I would like to live a long life. Longevity has its place, but I'm not concerned about that now. I just want to do God's will. And God has allowed me to go up the mountain, and I've looked over, and I've seen the promised land. I may not get there with you, but I want you to know tonight that we, as a people, will get to the promised land. Faith, belief, hope, inspiration, prophecy. May that journey to the promised land that we started so long ago, that is our journey as Jews, it has become the journey of human civilization. May that journey engage us all, and may we thereby bring hope, healing, and renewed purpose to each other and to our nation. God bless you. I look forward to seeing you next week. Be well, be strong, be safe.